excited because I'm going to introduce our next keynote speaker. She is, we opened up this program with a woman in the personal development space, Forbes Riley, and we had a conversation about how there's only, really, if you think about it, there's not as many as men, especially historically speaking. One of those thought leaders, though, that is in the forefront, that has been for several years, is not just a transformational leader. She's also the vice president of the Los Angeles Tribune. If you have enjoyed this program, you need to thank her. If you have enjoyed any of the work that we do in the leadership space, you have to thank her because she runs that division of the organization. It's very unusual for a news and media organization to be in the personal development arena, and that's a tribute to Dr. Natalie Forrest and her passion, because she runs that division of what we do in this space, which we're so proud of. And with that, I'm going to introduce, well, I just introduced her. I'm going to invite her to come up and give her keynote speech. So if you have a pen, if you have a paper handy, make sure that you have that in your hands, because she always has gems of wisdom. But before actually I invite her, I'm going to ask Rex and Adora to just say a couple quick words about Natalie Forrest. Please, Adora.
Yes, I love powerful, dynamic women who still have just this feminine, loving essence. And I love all different types of women. I also have a friend we'll see later has a motherboard tattoo on her neck. Like, I just love boss women. And Natalie is definitely leading the field of transformation, both behind the scenes and out front. So I'm super excited to hear from her now.
Rex, a couple words about Dr. Forrest, please.
There are more women in the world than there are men, and yet men occupy more positions sometimes of power, influence than women do. And Dr. Natalie is one of those people who is right where she deserves to be. She's at the forefront and the cutting edge of everything. And my life and the life of so many people around me and the rest of us has been immeasurably improved by getting to know and experience Dr. Natalie, and I am so in love with this person. I couldn't be more blessed.
Well, I don't know how Natalie feels. Rex just proclaimed his love for you on the air. Maybe he should have said that to you privately. I don't know, but but you know what, Rex, you got to shoot your shot when you have opportunity, my friend. So let's go ahead and step back and give the full floor to Dr. Natalie Forrest, who's going to present her keynote for today's program. Dr. Forrest, please.
Well, thank you so much. And I must say that my win right now is completely confused. And what I mean by that is very simple. We've talked a lot about winning and the new psychology of winning. And I've been thinking and wrecking my brain about, well, what does winning mean to me? Because in my world, I use the word to gain. And of course, Rex and the others just also talked about words. Words are so important, the way that we use them. And to gain is not as convoluted yet, not as socially ridiculed as the word win, because win usually means something gives, something loses. So when I think about win, and it took me a while to think about it, which means after I was part of these amazing panels, and I then put my daughter to bed, I thought, what does winning mean to me? And I realized what it is it means I am welcoming an internal nexus. In other words, I'm welcoming an internal union. Therefore, it doesn't matter what anybody else does because I'm defining myself through me. And how do we get there? Well, we've heard amazing testimonials already today, all day long, on how we get there. It is by you knowing yourself. How do you know yourself? Well, you retrace the steps to where you came from. In other words, you figure out, when were you happy? When were you completely peaceful on the inside? And yes, the first step that you take is you actually have to look back at when you were a child. I always love to talk about children because they're the ones who jump up and down and think they're Superman, they're Superwoman, nothing can hit them, nothing can hurt them. until society comes in. So, in that process of us reconnecting with ourselves, what we really, really have to do is we have to gain old wisdom back. And whether we use frequencies, whether we use energies, it doesn't really matter. What the goal is when we are welcoming an internal union is, first of all, we have to detox all of those hidden patterns in our heads, the ones that keep us stuck where we are right now, that keep us not knowing who we truly are, that keep us in a comparative mode. That's not what we want, because we're all unique. I walked around earlier this week and I kept looking at the leaves that fall during this fall or summer, end of summer season. And I actually took some photos of them, because what I've noticed is that when you look at the leaves, not just the way that they're falling, because I wrote a blog about that, but when they're on the ground, you can still distinguish them from each other. On the one hand, you're saying they're all leaves, but when you really look, they're all different. The only time that they're not different and when you can't tell them apart anymore is when the rain has hit them and when people have stepped all over them. So I just want you not to allow anybody else to step all over you, because you're needed just the way that you are. You're needed with your gifts and talents. Therefore, you need to gain access to that inner core of yourself. And you need to detox, as I said, all the other stuff that has been put on you. Whether Moss was earlier talking about the roles. We all have certain roles. And I used to love talking to my clients about, well, who are you? And the answers that I get are, I'm a mom, I'm a teacher, I'm a speaker. Well, that's all fantastic, but no, that's not who you are. That is something that you do. We need to step away from identifying with what we do as who we are. They're two different things. Doing is one thing, being is the other thing. And being is what we want to re-achieve, what we want to regain. Because if we're not being, then, as some of the legends said earlier, you can't be the present that you are. You can only be the present that you are if you're present, and that means that you're being instead of doing. And so when we're looking at welcoming internal nexus, welcoming internal union, we work on ourselves. We get back to regaining calm, because we used to have it. Regaining clarity, because we used to have it. And thereby we're regaining confidence, because we used to have it when we were kids. Once we regain all of that, that's when we can realize that there's so much more to life. And that's partially what I was asking earlier in some of the panels. There's so much more to life, but sometimes we're so stuck, we're so engaged in doing that we don't recognize our own potential. We don't recognize how amazing we are. And so getting rid of all of that stuff and going back on the inside to reconnect. And reconnection doesn't just mean you reconnect with yourself. It also means spiritually, with your values, figuring out, what do you need? What do you want now? Not later, but now. We need to make time for that moment. Now, of course, we're all about giving you hands down advice, action steps. So let's do that. Action steps. First, make time for yourself every single day. I believe it was Dennis earlier who said, and I just can't help myself. I got to bring it back up. Man cannot multitask. Yeah, sorry, I agree. Not sorry. That's why I mentioned when I started out that, in between being here, I also made dinner in between and I did some other things. While I was listening, because there are so many important nuggets. So you need to make time for yourself. Every single morning, I meditate. Now, meditation might not be for you. That's perfectly fine. Before I made it a ritual to meditate every morning, it varied two different items. Either I made my own coffee latte and sat down with it and my cat, or I did some yoga. Start the day out with time for you so that you can set the day up the right way for you. Number two, you need to make time for yourself in whatever ways you can. And I know life gets busy. So use the time you have, whether that means that you listen to your favorite song while you're vacuuming the house, or you're listening to your favorite audiobook while driving in the car, or taking a walk instead of taking the car to drop your child off at school. All of those things are important. And when you make time for yourself, what you also need to do absolutely is be in touch with nature. We need to go out and breathe. And that's tip number 3. Breathe. Really breathe. We talk about coherence, the heart connection. And the way that we do it is we put our hands on our hearts. And we breathe in to the count of 3 usually, hold it, and breathe out to the count of 5. When you do that and you connect with your heart and you tell your heart, thank you, I love you, you are opening the channels to really communicate with yourself, to really welcome that union, to get rid of all of the roadblocks that you have. And that's what I enjoy doing. So I welcome the internal nexus with me, and I love helping others get there as well. So one of the things that attracted me to this, other than, of course, the amazing Adora and Mo, and all of the wonderful legends that I was so privy to today, listen to and interact with, is that Dennis, when I first met him, he was on a program that Mo and I do for the Los Angeles Tribune. We interviewed him on a book that he wrote with his daughters, actually. And that was, of course, the psychology of winning for women. And one of the things stuck in my head, I had forgotten it honestly for a while I was creating my own programs to work with women at a crossroads. But what he says in there, he says, women who win in life accept themselves as they are, changing, growing, imperfect, and in the process of becoming all their potential allows them to be. And I love that, because that's what we're talking about. That's what Forbes Riley talked about earlier. That is what we're all talking about here. It doesn't matter whether you're male, female, or whatever you choose to be, but we all have an internal potential. And the only limitation is if we turn off the connection to our internal instincts and our internal amazing self. So when you think about winning, don't think about winning in those polarities. Polarities just follow that old historical rule of divide and conquer. I'm a historian by trade. We don't want to divide and conquer. You don't want to divide and conquer yourself. You don't want to divide and conquer others. You want to bring people together, because when you grow, others grow. When others grow and you're open-minded, you grow. We're all interconnected. We can talk about frequencies, we can talk about energies, whatever you want to call it. There's plenty of scientific and non-scientific evidence, which I call energies, on how we are all connected. How I know to call a friend, how a friend knows to call me, even if we haven't talked. And when hundreds of thousands of people meditate, for example, or sing a song or dance, there is a certain vibration, there's a certain frequency to it. So when you welcome and get rid of the roadblocks that throughout your life have been put in your way, to create and recreate that internal connection to who you are, and thereby it is a spiritual connection as well, then you allow yourself to regain the calm, the clarity, and the confidence. And that allows you to move forward and to no longer be bogged down by fear, worry, anxiety, those things that keep you stuck, because that's not what we want. And yet I know there are many out there who do, who wake up in the morning and they worry about what other people are saying. Well, it doesn't matter. As long as you know who you are, you're never alone. And if you don't like who you are, or you don't know who you are, then you need to open that door back up. Because otherwise, you're not living, you're existing. And if you're only existing, then nobody is winning. And I'm going to close out with one of my favorite lines by one of my favorite singers that he said at a concert I was at just before he sang one of the most important songs that I believe he's ever written. And he said, "Nobody wins unless everybody wins." And with that, I'm going to hand it back to the team behind the scenes. I'll just say that if you would like to connect more with me, I have a Facebook group. It's very simple to find me. I'm everywhere. And as the amazing Mo Rock, of course, also said, you can also find me here on the Los Angeles Tribune channel at any point in time. But please go out and reconnect with yourself, because we need you just the way you are. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for that, Dr. Natalie Forrest. Although I will say that Napoleon Bonaparte would have strongly disagreed with everything you had to say. I agreed with most of it.
He was
But
French. I'm German. He's French.
that's right. And let's bring back in Rex Sykes, because we are now going to. I appreciate you, Dr. Natalie Forrest, for that.